Welcome to a mini episode of I Am Interchange. I'm Tate Chamberlin, and we have an upcoming dialogue and debate on human migration and displacement. In our latest podcast, Wilmont Collins, a refugee from Liberia, and I explore the vast difference between a refugee and an immigrant. This conversation dispels many common misconceptions about the experience. Wilmont Collins has been living in Montana for more than 20 years and is currently seeking the office of mayor in Helena.
I'm from Liberia, West Africa, and Liberia was established by slaves that were freed from this country and went back to Africa, and they honored the American fifth president, James Monroe, by naming the capital city in his honor, Monrovia, because he was instrumental with the American Colonization Society in sending the slaves back to Africa. And they took with them a lot of stuff. They took with them the English language. They took with them Christianity, form of government, and even the currency.
Where do you draw the line when helping strangers?
What people tend to mistake is that they link everybody in the same group. They link refugees and undocumented immigrants in the same group. When a refugee enters this country, they're legal. They will not enter this country without having the right documents, because the vetting process happens outside of this country. So I say this to say that the Bible tells us we need to open up our hearts to strangers. Where I would draw the line, and even here in Helena, sometimes people ask me, why are you helping the guy on the street? I will stop in when I see a sign saying, help me, I need gas. And I was once like them. Somebody believed in me and decided to help me. If they're lying to me, so be it. I'll leave that with them and their conscience. But if I can do it, I'll do it. If I can assist, I'll assist. The U.S., despite what people think that the U.S. spends a lot of money on refugees and this, that, the United States government is not even among the top 15 that spend on refugees. Last year, the United States government accepted 85,000 refugees. And we're talking about other countries accepting 1.2 million. We're talking about 300,000. We're talking about 600,000 people are being accepted in other countries. But here we're so misinformed about what the government does to help refugees. Yes, the government does help refugees, but refugees, after they've settled in, they give back tenfold in terms of businesses, in terms of taxes, in terms of enriching their environment.
Could you say the same about immigration?
Immigration is a little different because immigration is a wide topic when it comes to immigration. As soon as you hear people talking about immigration, the first thing they talk about is the border. And immigration is more than the border, because when you talk about immigration, you talk about the U.S. also. The U.S., we have Americans all over the world. That's immigration. We have people that come to America. That's immigration. But we're so blinded by the undocumented immigrants that we look at immigration as only Mexico and the U.S. Mm-hmm. And that's a small part of immigration. What I'm trying to say here is that there are several reasons why someone will leave their homeland to come to this country. And I'm not saying we don't have people that come in here to do bad things or evil, drug dealers, whatever the case may be. But majority of the people that flee the country, they flee the country for survival. When I finally fled Liberia, I was 90 pounds. My wife was my wife was like 85, 87 pounds. We were dying. And so when we fled and went to Ghana, we were undocumented immigrants into Ghana. So you see, when we got into Ghana, we didn't have any documents to get into Ghana.
How did you prove who you were?
I worked as a teacher, special ed teacher for an organization, the SOS Children's Village. And when I fled to Ghana, I was able to contact the Ghanaian branch, and they were able to verify my existence. They were able to verify who I was because, yes, This person worked for the SOS Children's Village. And in fact, they accepted me for a while there with them. So that's how I was able to prove it. Some people who could not prove it. You see, what people don't understand is that the U.S. does not have to prove you are who you say you are. You have to prove to the U.S. who you are. So if you can't do that, pray tell me, why would they let you move forward? They don't. And that's what people don't understand.
How many agencies would you say you went through?
We went through, just security agencies alone, you're looking at 5.
Okay.
Homeland Security, counterterrorism, and within the Homeland Security, you got USCIS, then you got the State Department. I mean, there's so many different. Then you have to go through the United Nations screening. And it took me 2 years and 7 months to go through my vetting process. Other people may take longer.
Do you think, is it racist to love your own race?
No, I don't think it is. You see, to each his own. And when I was born in Liberia. I love myself as a Liberian. I love Liberians, all right? But now let me tell you, because say if I saw someone who were just as qualified as you, and you apply for a position that I had to hire one of the two, and you and the Liberian are just as qualified, I'll be honest with you, I may choose the Liberian because you have the same credentials, you're just as qualified, but I think I know more about him than I know about you. Just by virtue of the fact that we grew up in the same society. The point I'm making is that to love yourself and your race does not mean you're racist, but how you go about it. How you go about it and what you think about the other race could label you as racist, as saying my race is the only race and my race is a superior race. When you start going down that route, yes, you're becoming racist. But the example I gave you just to love your race, no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. You must preserve yourself first. So it's the same thing. The example I gave you with hiring. I'm hiring the Liberian not because I think he is the superior of the two. No, he's not. But I know more about him than I know about you by virtue of the fact that we grew up and we lived in the same community. But when you start going down that slippery slope by saying my race is the best race and no other race can compare to my race, all other races are infidel or trash, that's a slippery slope you don't want to go through. Then you're not just talking about your own race, you're demeaning other people through the process, and that's wrong.
What kind of thoughts go through your mind when brain drain, basically the concept is talented people that are problem solvers are refugees and they flee the country into all over the world, and it leaves the home country lacking problem solvers. Yeah. So you're running for mayor here. Do you think you could make a bigger difference?
I'm sure I could, but I've lived in Helena, Montana for 23 years. I love this town. I love this state. And I think I've been accepted by my community. Can I make a difference in Liberia? I'm sure I could. But right now, I'm thinking about my immediate environment. Now, there are several programs. When people apply for various programs to come to the U.S., part of the criteria is that you have to be able to support yourself. So when they say you have to be able to support yourself, who do you think would be able to support themselves? The people that, if I were to choose between someone who was a high school dropout and someone who has a college degree, who do you think the government would take? The college degree. And so, and even there's a program the U.S. has, the diversity visa. The diversity visa makes sure that they pick professionals, even people, the B1 or B2 visa that bring in all the professionals, those are brain drained from various countries. But the person that's coming, they're only doing what nature allows, self-preservation. They want to preserve themselves. They want to preserve their families. They're not looking at the bigger picture. When I fled Liberia, I was only looking for survival. But now, who am I? I'm an American, all right? And I will do whatever it takes to protect my country, America.
Is there anything else you want to add?
I just want to, in closing, if I have to say this, I want to say that refugees are not the problem. They're not the problem because we have there isn't any validity to the saying that refugees commit terrorism in America because we don't have a case. We don't have a case where a refugee has committed terrorism. We have cases where Americans have committed terrorism in America. But when people when you're looking for a scapegoat, the easy target is, let's use the refugees. And that is so wrong.
What would you do to solve that? What would you personally do to solve the social ties between a refugee and kind of the stigma that...
You see, exactly what you're doing today. So what I'm doing in my own way is to educate our community. And people will say these things out of fear and lack of knowledge. And so what can we do? Let's put it out there. Let's let them know. There's no need to be afraid. I've come here. My family is almost a military family. We intend to defend this country to the last. My daughter is out of the country with the Navy. My wife is Army Reserves. I'm Naval Reserves. My son decides, no, Dad, y'all go that route. I'm not going with you. But the point here is that we see there's dignity in service. And so we will do what we can to do our part. And all we ask is just give them that second chance. Because I always tell people, because the U.S. gave me that second chance, I'll never abuse that chance. And my situation, my family situation is not unique. If you travel around this country, you see a lot of refugees doing similar stuff and doing better. I've met refugees in all 50 states. And they're doctors, they're nurses. And I'm not saying some of them don't get into petty crimes and all of that here in the country. But it's not unlike the average Americans. But when you just link us to terrorism, it's scary. It hurts.
With that, we draw this episode to a close and encourage you to comment on our page and start a dialogue in your community. Remember, share airtime and don't ruin dinner. This episode was produced by Tyson Lunn, Chris Griffin, and Tate Chamberlin. Do you have an issue that's riddled by gridlock in your community? Contact us at iaminterchange.org. That's iaminterchange.org.